Good morning as folks are joining on this Monday, August 11th. It's great to see you. We're happy to have Kim Davenport jump in. We did have a cancellation, and that's what the 9:30 call is all about, Kim. But before we get started, Titus and I just had a meeting, and was it Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. is the special EEC board meeting that Commissioner Kershaw mentioned when she was on the 9:30 call last week. So we are going to encourage folks to go to the EEC board meeting on Wednesday. So sharing the mic is on the schedule for this Wednesday, but we think folks should try to go to the EEC board meeting at 9. And so we're going to send another email this morning that is encouraging people on Wednesday morning. It's a live stream. It's a virtual board meeting. And then we'll if the board meeting doesn't go the full time, we will jump on the 9:30 call whenever it's over. So if it ends early, we will be here. But if not, we think folks should attend the board meeting. And I don't know if the agenda is posted yet, but we can look this
Just
morning.
something just came out this morning.
Oh, that's right. I just got that email.
Yep.
So the board meeting is Wednesday, August 13th. And so the agenda is welcome and comments from the chair, comments from the secretary, comments from the commissioner, routine business, approval of the June 11th meeting, and then the items of discussion for action, as the commissioner shared, is going to be about the formula for C3 for FY26. And then as the commissioner told us, they will be conducting listening sessions, or excuse me, sessions to get feedback, public input. So that's where, if you're just joining us, good morning. We are going to encourage folks to go to the special virtual EEC board meeting on Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. We'll send an email out. And then if the board meeting ends early, we'll be here on the 9:30 call till 10. But if not, we'll be back in action on Thursday. So Kim, welcome to the 9:30 call. And I am recording. So I'm going to actually pin us for this interview. And so welcome. So we'll be talking to each other. So Kim, tell us a little bit about you and how you came to be in your current role.
Great. Thank you, Amy. It's a pleasure to be here and to have an opportunity to share a little bit about my background, but also about what Edward Street is doing in Central Mass and all the partners that we're working with. So I was thinking about this on the way in because I knew it was our first question. And I was like, I don't actually know where to start. Is it with my stuffed animals when I was teaching them and I was like 7? Is it, when I taught swimming lessons at a preschool program in the summer in high school? I basically got to the foundation and was like, you know what? I have always been about working for, with, and on behalf of young children. It's just been in my DNA from the earliest years. And I've had an amazing opportunity to do it in a number of ways. The kind of launching point for my work with children in earnest as a career really came when I moved up to Massachusetts and went to Tufts, to the Elliott Pearson Children's School, and the program there, and had an amazing experience that solidified my work in the field and my desire to make it a career. And I think what was most important was the connection between theory and practice. They were really at the intersection before the programs were, dating myself a bit. And that launched my belief that, we could take theory, put it into practice, learn from it, and go back and rework it, and then get better and come back and do that over and over. And that's how we've built this amazing field. Some of my early work was in Worcester, working for an organization, Worcester Comprehensive Education and Care, which was much like a Head Start agency. I also tumbled into teaching at Quinsigamond Community College, and really enjoyed it, and continue to have that as part of my background. I've also been teaching in the leadership certificate program with you, Amy, over the years, and I teach at Fitchburg State University in the special education master's degree program track. So I kind of enjoy that part of preparing adults and their work. And then I've done a number of things that really helped me think about the field in a number of entrepreneurial ways. So I worked at an organization called Bean Sprout Networks, which actually was a startup company that was connecting early care and education providers with parents and pediatricians, kind of what parents' two most trusted resources. And that was an amazing experience working with MIT programmers to build the first generation websites for childcare programs, way before we had anything but a fax machine in the office as the high tech. And then, I continued my career in working on kind of expanding national organizations. So I was at Jumpstart for Young Children for more than a decade, doing work that grew the Pearson Teacher Fellowship Program and launched careers of early ed and care provider teachers, and continued to do that work kind of across the country, building curriculum and education experiences for young children. And I know there's a lot of jump starters in the 930 call
We
family.
got
Love
Kate
it.
Warren Barnes sent a yes in case in
Yeah.
the chat and in reacting.
Absolutely. And, then, as my career kind of wound back to more of a local focus, I, was really excited to work at kind of a regional level, some state work. And now I've been hyper local in kind of Worcester and Central Mass. And lo and behold, as I restarted my work, Jumpstart came here. So it was a little bit of a full circle moment. I was like, oh my gosh, all these amazing early childhood programs and initiatives are really right here in my backyard, and it's really where I wanted to play. And so that's what got me back into Worcester. I live here. I've raised my family here, and I've found that this city is an amazing um, community that has collaboration at its heart, and it makes it actually easy to start conversations and figure new things out to solve problems. And that's a big part of what's always driven my work, systems building, problem solving, and innovation. And so I'm thrilled to be in my new role here as the CEO of Edward Street. Big shoes to step in from Eve Gilmore, who's still one of my closest confidants, and we are, making that growth and leap and transition into the next chapter for Edward Street.
And so, Kim, let's talk a little bit about Edward Street and the work and the history of Edward Street. And how long have you been, as we read in the description, you've been in many different
Yeah.
roles. So how long
Yes.
have you been there? And tell us a little bit about the work of Edward Street historically, and then what you're focused on now.
Sure. So I've been here just over 11 years, which is pretty exciting. So I passed the decade mark. And the work that brought me back kind of into the community was alignment work. So I helped write, I was on the board for Edward Street for a while, a couple of years, and helped them write the grant that brought the early education and care funding for birth to grade 3 alignment work. And that just was fascinating to me because I knew that the connection was about the continuum and not about any one point on it. And the importance of knitting together all of the experiences, because children and families have that. Like, they live in communities and move through all of the systems that we've built that aren't necessarily connected. So the opportunity to create that alignment, to create a focus for all the education related and family service organizations in a community was really impactful. So that was a big part of the work I did early in my work here at Edward Street. And it grew. And the more we were at tables talking about young children and what they needed, the more the ice was breaking and new connections were being made. And we know to this day, if we're not at the table and we're not talking about young children, they're not on the agenda. And so our work collectively here on the 930 call, right, is to get to all those tables. And I feel like that's a great honor I have here in the Central Mass community, is to just keep stepping up to more tables to talk about young children, their families, what they need, and really elevating the voices of families and educators and providers so that they're leading the change in policy, they're leading the change in decision-making circles so that we can make a better system for them.
And so can you talk a little bit about coming into this role, when you think about you've been there 11 years, you are transitioning from Eve, who had been at Edward Street for a long time, and then Diane Bruce before that.
before that. Yep.
And you like strategies for children are a lean, mean machine. And probably you're raising money to kind of keep the organization going. Can you talk a little bit about, as you've stepped into this leadership role, what has that felt like? Where do you find support? And what are you thinking about as you're making this move?
Sure. Great question. So 4 or 5 years ago, I attended a session that the Greater Worcester Community Foundation hosted in their nonprofit success seminar. And it was, so you think you want to be an executive director, huh? And so I went to that and I said, well, let's see. And what was interesting is, it really opened my eyes to kind of the wide array of tasks and responsibilities that come with sitting in the top seat. A couple things that jump out that are absolutely true shifting into this role is that you're alone in your role, but you're not lonely, because the role requires all the connections that you have and new connections to be made. And I feel like the welcoming of the other executive directors just in this community has been overwhelming. The chamber does an amazing job welcoming new leaders. The leaders in the human service sector, industry, and our nonprofit space are very welcoming. And I literally just have to pick up the phone and ask questions and wondering, and how did you do this? And I know I've got my bat phone here, and like Amy is on it, and Titus is on it, and like Lee Baker is on it, like all of these amazing folks who are really supporting kind of the work overall, and are there answering the call when I make it. So I'm pretty blessed that way.
And I know we've talked, and at Strategies for Children, we kind of updated, refreshed our board of directors, because I do think like
Mhm.
appreciating all the different parts of the organization you have to
Yes.
attend to as executive director. Can you talk a little bit about how you're tackling some of those
Yeah.
things?
Oh, yes.
And especially for Edward Street, an organization that's had a lot of history. One of
Hmm.
our strategic goals from our strategic plan refresh is release the past and launch the future. Because I think, we will be 25 next year, and you just think about long history and kind of how important you are to the community of Worcester and beyond. But kind of what are some of the things you're tackling as you've come into the job?
Yeah. So one of the big things is exactly what you're saying, Amy. It's like, what's the next chapter? What does the community need? Where do we need to go? What's left to be done? Because Edward Street is over 140 years old. So we're one of the oldest games in town. We started in direct service, transitioned into kind of the advocacy arena, then kind of retransitioned into advocacy policy, technical assistance work. And we had to say, what's next? Where do we need to go? So one of the first things that I did was architect with a partner, Marty Walls, who I know she's been on the 9:30 call. We architected a planning summit with my board, and then backed up and said, okay, how am I going to get input into kind of the questions that we have, where we want to go, what we want to do next? And it wasn't necessarily a strategic plan. We really wanted to understand what was needed and how we could set the organization up for its next long-term success, and particularly around revenue sustainability. And so it created a solutions session where I pulled in leaders that informed my thinking around a wide array of options that we had, thinking about how we could generate revenue, create strategic partnerships, think kind of long-term and around the corner, and learn from folks who had been stepping forward and trying some of these things along the way. And that was really a game changer, to really hear the stories of other leaders and what they've tried, and then to have those leaders kind of work across themselves to be like, what about this? What about that? And it was just very generative, and we were able to extract a number of ideas that we rolled forward into a planning summit. And one of the things that was really important was also leveling up the board's knowledge and expertise, because here I was learning and running forward and thinking of all of these options. And I had to think about, how do I bring the board up to kind of my foundational knowledge so that they could be partners in the work, and they could inform some of the choice points that we wanted to make for the organization. So we're looking at everything from expanding our master teacher consultation program. What does that look like? How far can we take that? What types of services and supports are needed today? And also kind of a SWOT analysis of like, who else is in this space? What do we need? What don't we need? How can we be additive and supportive, but not duplicative, right? So we wanted to be clear on that. We're looking at how we can drive a growth in our CPPI grant, because we have one in partnership with the Worcester Public Schools and community providers. We're looking at the first 1,000 days and really locking in child and maternal health, and how do we measure that and look at that with our Worcester Department Division of Public Health and the Together for Kids Coalition. We wanted to look at how we could transform the sector on the workforce pipeline side and keep people in the role, and look at where our childcare deserts are in the community and how we can solve for that in new and innovative ways. And we're looking at some of the innovative work that's happening out of Connecticut on the early educator teacher housing benefit, and thinking about family childcare providers. Connecting all the programs that are doing the work in the space has been very exciting. And so we're eager to kind of step into new strategic partnerships, which is also about partnerships for programming, but also partnerships for fundraising, because in this space, doing that work collaboratively is really important. We are looking at developing, exploring the development of an early childhood funders collaborative for Central Massachusetts, where we can have a call to action for business leaders and municipalities to kind of make a longer term deep investment to transform something in their communities and sectors, so that we change the game for young children, families, and the providers in our business, and ultimately our economy and our community. So that is kind of a quick dive on all the different areas that we're looking at and the levers that we're seeking. And we couldn't be more excited about the number of new avenues that we're able to pursue. And I'm not sure if I'm allowed to share it so much, Amy, but one of the really exciting opportunities that we have on the horizon now is working with Strategies for Children and the Commonwealth Children Fund and a few partners to create an early childhood fellowship program, which is going to really change the game here in Worcester with Edward Street, in terms of bringing someone in to support an amazing experience and growth in early education policy, and helping launch more careers in this amazing space.
So yes, Kim, over the last couple of weeks, we have been working busily. I feel a little bit like Oz, the Wiz is in Boston. Like we're working behind the scenes to launch this early childhood fellowship, which we're coming up with a catchier name, but it will be an embedded fellowship, a 20-month fellowship for a full-time employee for Edward Street, East Boston Social Centers, Strategies for Children, and I think we can announce two at the Department of Early Education and Care. And then have a 5 cohort fellowship model where they're working in these organizations and then coming together to kind of share what they're learning, best practices. We are so excited about this. So we'll have a official announcement, but of course, the 9:30 callers here at first. We'll have an official announcement in September as everything is getting under the way. And I added the link to Edward Street in the chat so folks can check that out. I also added Commonwealth Beacon. If you remember, Maeve Duggan was here a while. We are housed at Mass Inc. One of the reporters wrote about the Data Advisory Committee or commission that's the EEC has convened. There's an article in the Commonwealth Beacon about childcare deserts. And Kim, I know you just mentioned that. Kim, also when you go to the Edward Street webpage, you see Day of Play. Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about what's happening in Worcester in September?
Yes, September 13th, which is Saturday. We're hoping for a beautiful sunny day like today. At Elm Park, we're hosting our 14th annual Day of Play Family Festival. It's a free family festival that brings the community together to offer more than 60 activities, performances, and opportunities for activities across 8 different play areas. So we've got folks that are sharing activities in creative arts, in STEM, in health and wellness, in mindfulness, active play, literacy, construction, you name it, we have it. And it's just an amazing opportunity to harness the power and joy of play and learning and demonstrate that to the community. And it's an amazing kind of tapestry that we weave together every single year. It's kind of like planning a wedding over and over, where we bring together the best of this community to celebrate young children and their families. And I can't think of a better, more invigorating event when we think of young children and the opportunity to support the growth and their full potential. And so there's a lot of partners here that are supporting the work, bringing activities. They all volunteer for the day. And we transform Elm Park, which is the oldest park in Worcester, and I think one of the first to make the National Registry of Parks officially.
Oh, wow.
And we take it over, and it is a play all day opportunity.
I was going to go to the chat for a minute and encourage folks to continue to put love and appreciation in. Edna said, it's so nice to see Kim on today's 9:30 call sharing her story. She has been part of this community for so many years. Feels like since the very beginning, grateful for it. And Donna Danette shares, Kim is also one of our most supportive people in our 9:30 call community. Very grateful for her presence and caring. She always is so engaged and asks the most insightful questions. Thank you, Kim. Edna agrees. And I guess here we are at 9:54, Kim. Tell us about like you are a longtime listener at the 9:30 call, active participant.
Yeah.
You kind of show up on camera every day. You are always engaged in the chat. Can you talk about like how are you prioritizing that? What are you getting out of the 9:30 call? We know what you are bringing, but can you talk a little bit about that?
Thanks. It's so interesting because when I stepped into the role, and we're lean and mighty, and we weren't replacing my role at that time.
Oh,
The
right.
board's like, so what are you going to do? What are you not going to do? And like, you got to figure that out. And I was like, yes. And so I had my spreadsheets out. I had Eve's list. We had over like 80 different things and places and spaces to
Wow.
be in any given month's time. And I said, oh, okay, there's that can't happen. But there has to be a prioritization, and what I have taken from this call because of this amazing community is the inspiration, support, new ideas, challenges that need to be addressed, things that I have to question. And I said, I have to be on the 9:30 call. So I think it's 3 out of the 4 days. There's one that it's really challenging because other meetings came in there, but I try to be on every 9:30 call because I get so much out of it. New ideas, new avenues for connection, new wonderings, partnerships, and the camaraderie that this call brings is just so powerful. I can't let it go. It has to be a priority. I can't get my day going without my second cup of coffee and a dose of the 9:30 call.
Oh, I like the dose of the 9:30 call. And then finally, can you talk a little bit about kind of what advice you would give to folks who are thinking about kind of especially in their own organizations, right? What does
Yeah.
succession planning look like? I loved your example of kind of going to that, like, so you want to be an executive director. Sometimes people can't be that intentional. You kind of find yourself in these roles, but
Mhm.
we should all be practicing, like, what do we want next for ourselves? What do you want to think about in your own professional development journey? So can you talk a little bit about what advice would you give to folks?
um, be curious and always look to learn. And that will set you up for thinking about what your next roles are. If you are not sure you want it, go talk to somebody who's doing it and just ask questions and be curious. Kind of do that coffee chat, and learn about what that executive role is like, or what that next step role could be like. And I found also asking outside of my direct field was really important too. So I'd
Right.
have conversations with other organizational leaders, just because I wanted to learn what it was like to sit in that seat. I also would encourage you to be brave and have the conversation with the exec or the leader in your organization to say, what's it really like, and how can I learn from you? How can I try some things out? What is something I can do different? Can I shadow? Can I sit on your right shoulder and say, how do we do this together? I was very intentional talking with Eve about ensuring the organization moved forward. I wasn't 100% sure it was going to be me because I had to make sure I wanted it and had the wherewithal ready to step into it, that my life kind of worked in that space. But I had the conversations and I started working in projects to kind of understand a little bit more about the architecture behind the organization in terms of the operations part of it, and stepped into that. And so I would say be bold, keep learning, stay curious, and keep talking to people because that's how you're going to learn more about what it's like. And trust me, the once you talk to folks, they'll tell you the truth. The information will flow, and you'll find a lot of opportunities to see where your next step could be, what level of leadership. And I know if you're here, you already took the first step because you're learning every day, you're sharing, you're coming, you want to know more and you want to contribute more. So right there, you've got, 100% you're a leader. So it's just figuring out what your next step is and where you want to take your passions.
I'll also add, Kim, that you also kind of show service by serving on other boards, right? You've kind of like
Yes. Yep.
included that as part of your own leadership development. And then how the overlap is, like where are you serving? And then what does that mean for Edward Street? What does that mean for Kim? Uh,
Absolutely. So, I've stepped into the chair role for the Together for Kids Coalition.
right.
I've also been a longstanding chair on the Worcester Education Collaborative that works in the K-12 environment. And that allows for that me to see a whole continuum and be really inspired by that. And I also participated in a local leadership program called Leadership Worcester about in 2018. And that just helped me see a whole lot more about the community and how it worked. So if you've got something like that in your community, that is an amazing opportunity to build your network, learn more about how a community works, and make connections.
Well, Kim, thank you so much. Thank you for jumping in when I emailed you on Friday and said we've had a cancellation. We'd love to have time with you. And I think, as folks have said in chat, it's so great to hear your story. And if you've joined us late, we are encouraging. We're going to have people go to the EEC board meeting on Wednesday. We will be at the 9:30 call if it ends early, but we'll send an email out with all that information. I think it'll be a great opportunity for people to log in and hear what's happening right from EEC. And then we'll be back in action on Thursday. Danielle Ewan will be here on Thursday. I can't remember who's tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow night is the SFC Reception for Reflection to celebrate our Advocacy Network Cohort 4. So I'll actually add that to the email as well. So if folks want to attend. Kim, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see everybody tomorrow. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Also do the
Have a
chat,
wonderful
Kim.
day.